My name is Verna, and at 56 years old, I thought I had done everything right as a mother. I raised my daughter alone after losing my husband, sacrificed everything I had to give her opportunities I never dreamed of. I even bought her a house with my late husband's life insurance money. But then she told me I couldn't live with her because I ruin her aesthetic. Those four words changed everything. Before I tell you what I did next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Hit that like button if you believe mothers deserve respect and subscribe because this story about boundaries, consequences, and a for sale sign is one you need to hear. Let me tell you how a mother's love can only be pushed so far before it pushes back. I grew up in a time when family meant everything, when you took care of your own no matter what. My story begins in Portland, Oregon, where I've lived most of my life. I met my husband Paul when I was 24 years old at a community barbecue in our neighborhood. He was 26, working in construction, and had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. We weren't rich, not by any stretch, but we were happy. Paul worked hard building homes for other families while dreaming of the one we'd create together. I worked as a nurse at the local hospital doing 12-hour shifts and coming home exhausted but fulfilled. We got married 2 years after we met in a small ceremony with just close family and friends. Nothing fancy, just two people promising to build a life together. 3 years into our marriage, I got pregnant with our daughter, Madison. I remember the day I told Paul. He picked me up and spun me around our tiny kitchen, laughing and crying at the same time. We were going to be parents. Madison came into the world on a rainy April morning, weighing 7 pounds and 3 ounces. She was perfect. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom house in the suburbs, nothing glamorous, but it was ours. Paul would come home covered in sawdust, and Madison would run to him, squealing with delight. Those were simple times. Our annual vacations were camping trips to the mountains, not because we couldn't afford hotels, but because we loved being together in nature. We'd roast marshmallows, tell stories under the stars, and Madison would fall asleep in her sleeping bag between us. Paul and I made sure to teach Madison the value of hard work and saving money. We didn't spoil her with expensive toys or designer clothes. She wore hand-me-downs from cousins, played with toys from garage sales, and seemed perfectly happy. She was a sweet kid, friendly and kind, always helping neighbors and volunteering at school events. Looking back now, I wonder where that girl went. Everything changed 5 years ago when I was 51. It was a Tuesday evening in November. Paul was driving home from a job site when a drunk driver ran a red light. The police came to my door at 8:30 that night. I remember every detail: the rain, the flashing lights, the officer's sympathetic face. Paul was gone. Just like that, the man I'd spent 27 years with was taken from me in an instant. The grief was crushing. Some mornings I couldn't get out of bed. But I had to be strong for Madison, who was 24 at the time and had just graduated from college with a degree in marketing. She moved back home for a few months, and we cried together, held each other, remembered Paul together. In those dark days, we were close. She was my reason to keep going. Paul's life insurance paid out $250,000. It was more money than I'd ever seen at once. I could have used it to pay off my mortgage, could have secured my retirement, could have done 100 things to make my own life easier. But every time I looked at Madison, I thought about what Paul would have wanted. He would have wanted his daughter taken care of. He would have wanted her to have opportunities. 2 years after Paul's death, when I was 53, Madison came to me with news. She'd been offered a job opportunity in Austin, Texas. The city was booming, she said, full of young creative professionals. She wanted to become a social media influencer, focusing on lifestyle content and home decor. She'd been building her Instagram following and saw real potential. But there was a problem. Rent in Austin was expensive, especially in the trendy neighborhoods where she needed to live to build her brand. Madison sat at our kitchen table showing me apartments on her laptop. Studio apartments were going for $1,500 a month. One-bedrooms were $2,000 or more. She looked defeated. I can still see her face, the way she bit her lower lip when she was worried, just like Paul used to do. That's when I made the decision. I told Madison I would buy her a house. Her eyes went wide with disbelief, then filled with tears. She asked how, and I told her about the insurance money. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, telling me over and over that I was the best mother in the world, that she'd make me proud, that she'd never forget this. We found a townhouse in East Austin in a neighborhood that was rapidly gentrifying. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, with an open floor plan perfect for the photo shoots Madison had planned. The price was $230,000. I used nearly all of Paul's insurance money, then took out a personal loan for $20,000 more to cover closing costs and basic furniture. I didn't tell Madison about the loan. I didn't want her to feel guilty. The day we closed on the house, Madison cried happy tears. She kept saying it was perfect, that this house would launch her career, that she'd make it work. I believed her. I was so proud imagining Paul looking down and smiling at the gift we'd given our daughter. I flew back to Portland, back to my little house and my nursing job, feeling like I'd done something meaningful with Paul's legacy. At first, Madison called me every week. She'd video chat and show me around the house, how she was decorating it, the furniture she was finding at thrift stores and painting white or beige. She was excited, full of energy and plans. Her Instagram was growing. She'd post photos of her coffee on the kitchen counter, her perfectly made bed with neutral linens, her minimalist bathroom with plants on the windowsill. I didn't fully understand the appeal, but I was happy she was happy. 6 months after Madison moved to Austin, I started noticing changes. Small things at first. Her Instagram follower count jumped from 5,000 to 50,000. She was posting every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Her content had a very specific look, everything in shades of cream, beige, white, and soft gold. She called it her aesthetic. That word started appearing in every conversation we had. Madison would call and tell me about brands reaching out to her for sponsorships. A candle company wanted her to feature their products. A bedding brand sent her free sheets in exchange for posts. She was making money, real money, from these partnerships. Her first month, she earned $3,000. The next month, $5,000. I was genuinely thrilled for her. My daughter was building a business, doing something she loved, but alongside her success, something else was growing. Madison started talking differently. She used words like curated, intentional, cohesive. Everything had to fit her brand. She'd reject sponsorship offers if the product didn't match her color palette. She'd spend hours arranging objects in her home just to get the perfect shot. I'd call during these sessions and she'd sound stressed, distracted, asking if we could talk later because the lighting was perfect right then. She also started talking a lot about image and perception. How her followers saw her mattered intensely. She'd analyze her engagement rates, worry about posting at optimal times, stress about maintaining her growth. I tried to be supportive, asking questions and showing interest, but truthfully, I didn't understand why it mattered so much. To me, she was posting pictures of her breakfast. To her, it was a career. Then, about a year after she'd moved to Austin, Madison met Garrett. She posted a photo of them together at some trendy restaurant downtown. He was tall, handsome in that polished way, wearing an expensive-looking button-down shirt. The caption said something about finding someone who matched her vibe. Within days, her follower count jumped to 100,000. Apparently, her audience loved seeing her in a relationship. Madison called me that week gushing about Garrett. He was 32, she said, and had founded a tech startup in Austin. His family was wealthy, owned real estate all over Texas. They lived in Westlake Hills, one of the most expensive areas. Garrett had gone to Stanford. He drove a Tesla. I listened, trying to share her excitement, but something felt off. She wasn't talking about how kind he was or how he made her laugh. She was talking about his credentials, his family's status, his lifestyle. I asked her if she loved him. There was a pause, then she laughed and said, "Of course, but that it was also nice to be with someone who understood her ambitions. Someone who lived in the same world she was trying to build." I told her I was happy for her, and I meant it, even though doubt was creeping into my heart. Over the next few months, Madison's content shifted. She started posting photos at expensive restaurants, wearing designer clothes I knew she couldn't afford on her own. She'd tag Garrett, and his family's name started appearing. His mother, Patricia, followed her. So did his sister. Madison was being absorbed into their world, and I could see her changing with each post. Her vocabulary changed too. She talked about wine pairings and art galleries and weekend trips to wine country. She name-dropped designers like they were old friends. When I'd share updates about my life, my garden, my book club, she'd say, "That's nice, Mom," in a tone that suggested she was barely listening. Conversations that used to last an hour were now 10-minute check-ins, where she did most of the talking. Then came the first visit that showed me just how much my daughter had changed. I flew to Austin after Madison had been dating Garrett for 3 months. I was so excited to see her, to see the house in person after so long, to meet this man she was spending all her time with. I packed my usual clothes, jeans, and a comfortable sweater, my canvas tote bag that I'd had for years. Madison picked me up from the airport. The moment she saw me, I caught something in her expression. A flicker of disappointment, maybe embarrassment. She hugged me, but it felt stiff. In the car, she said, "Mom, didn't you bring anything nicer?" I looked down at my outfit confused. "This is what I always wear, sweetie," I told her. She sighed, and said we were meeting Garrett's parents for brunch the next day, and maybe we could find me something more appropriate. I felt like I'd been slapped. Appropriate, I was wearing clean, presentable clothes. What was inappropriate? But I didn't want to fight, so I said okay if it meant that much to her. That evening, she took me to a boutique I would never have entered on my own. Everything was minimalist and overpriced. She picked out a linen dress in beige, simple but elegant. The price tag said $150. I nearly choked. "Madison, this is too expensive," I protested. She pulled out her credit card and said she'd pay, that I should just trust her. I wore the dress to brunch feeling uncomfortable and unlike myself. Garrett's parents, Harold and Patricia, met us at a restaurant where the menu didn't have prices. They were polite in that cold, formal way that rich people sometimes are. Patricia wore pearls and a Chanel bag. Harold talked about their real estate portfolio. They asked what I did, and I told them I was a nurse now semi-retired. Patricia smiled thinly and said, "Oh, how noble," in a tone that made it clear she didn't think it was noble at all. They talked about their recent trip to Italy, about the villa they were considering buying in Tuscany. Garrett talked about his startup's latest funding round. Madison laughed at their jokes and agreed with their opinions. I sat there feeling invisible, occasionally trying to contribute to the conversation, only to be met with polite nods before they moved on. Madison didn't defend me or try to include me. She just let me sit there, an outsider in beige linen. On the drive back to her house, I asked if she'd noticed how they treated me. She avoided my eyes and said they were just formal people, that I shouldn't take it personally. But it felt personal. It felt like my daughter was ashamed of me. I didn't say that out loud. I didn't want to believe it myself. 3 months passed before I visited again. This time, I decided to surprise Madison. I bought a last-minute ticket and showed up at her door on a Saturday morning. I knocked, used the spare key she'd given me, and walked in calling her name. The house looked completely different from when I'd bought it. Gone was the thrift store furniture. Everything was new, expensive, coordinated. Cream-colored sofa, marble coffee table, abstract art on the walls, plants and designer pots. Madison appeared from the living room and I saw the setup, ring lights on stands. Her phone mounted on the tripod. She was filming. The second she saw me, her face fell. "Mom," she exclaimed, rushing over and literally pushing me back toward the hallway. "What are you doing here?" she whispered urgently. "I wanted to surprise you," I said, confused by her reaction. "Is something wrong?" She glanced back at her filming setup, then at me, and I saw calculation in her eyes. "I was filming," she said. Now I have to start over. The way she said it, like I'd committed some terrible crime by visiting my daughter unannounced, I apologized, feeling foolish. She took a breath and forced a smile, saying it was fine, she'd just redo it later. But the damage was done. I felt like an intruder in the house I'd bought for her. That evening, we had dinner together. I tried to reconnect, asking about her life, her work, Garrett. She answered in superficial ways, always steering the conversation back to her content strategy or engagement rates. At one point, she said, "Mom, when I'm filming, could you maybe stay in the guest room? I need the space to look perfect." Perfect for who I asked. For my followers, she said, like it was obvious. They expect a certain standard. I lay in the guest room that night, staring at the ceiling, feeling utterly alone. The room was beautiful, decorated in those same neutral tones, but it felt cold. There were no family photos anywhere in the house. No pictures of Paul, no pictures of us together. Just carefully curated art and objects chosen for their aesthetic value. I wondered when my daughter had become someone who cared more about how things looked than how things felt. The next morning, I left early. Madison barely seemed to notice. She was already planning her content for the week, scrolling through her phone at the breakfast table. I hugged her goodbye and she patted my back absently, already distracted. The entire flight home, I cried quietly in my window seat, trying to understand what had happened to the sweet girl who used to make me Mother's Day cards and tell me I was her best friend. Then came Madison's 29th birthday party, an event I learned about through Instagram. I was scrolling through my feed when I saw her stories from the night before. A beautifully decorated party at her house. Balloons in shades of cream and gold. A cake that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Friends I didn't recognize, all dressed like they'd stepped out of a catalog. Garrett and his parents prominently featured, and not a single mention of me. I called her the next day, keeping my voice light. "Honey, I saw your party on Instagram. It looked beautiful." There was a pause. Oh, yeah, thanks, Mom. I waited for an explanation, but none came. So I asked, I would have loved to have been there. Another pause longer this time. Then she said, it was kind of a work thing, all influencer networking. I needed to make connections. I'm your mother, I said quietly. I would have stayed out of the way. I just wanted to celebrate with you. She sighed that same tired sigh I'd heard before. Mom, you don't understand. It would have been awkward. You don't really fit in with that crowd. The words hit me like a physical blow. I don't fit in. She rushed to clarify, saying I wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway, that everyone was talking about social media algorithms and brand deals. But I heard what she really meant. I was an embarrassment. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. I looked around at my own house, modest and lived in, full of memories and mismatched furniture. I looked at the photo of Paul on the mantle taken on our 20th anniversary. I wondered what he would think of who our daughter had become. Would he be proud of her success, or would he be heartbroken like I was to see her prioritize image over family? That night, I made myself a cup of tea and sat in Paul's old armchair. I let myself cry properly for the first time in months. I cried for the daughter I'd lost, for the relationship that was slipping away, for all the sacrifices that seemed meaningless now. I cried for Paul, who would never see how his insurance money had been used. And I cried for myself for feeling so utterly disposable. 6 months after Madison's birthday party, my health took a turn. I'd been having knee pain for a while, but I'd ignored it, pushing through my shifts at the hospital. Finally, the pain got so bad I could barely walk. My doctor diagnosed me with severe arthritis in both knees. She recommended I cut back on work, significantly avoid standing for long periods, and consider eventual knee replacement surgery. Cutting back on work meant cutting my income in half. I'd been working part-time anyway since Paul died, but now I could only manage maybe 2 shifts a week, and even that was painful. I looked at my budget and felt panic rising. My mortgage, utilities, food, medical bills. The numbers didn't add up anymore. Portland's cost of living had been climbing steadily, and my modest income couldn't keep pace. I started thinking about my options. I could sell my house and move somewhere cheaper, but this was the house Paul and I had bought together, where we'd raised Madison. Every corner held memories. Or I thought I could move to Austin. Madison's house had 2 bedrooms. I'd bought it for her. Surely she'd let me live there while I got back on my feet financially and physically. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I could help around the house, do the cooking and light cleaning while Madison focused on her career. We could rebuild our relationship. I'd be closer to her, able to see her regularly instead of these strained visits. It felt like the solution to multiple problems. I called Madison on a Tuesday evening. I told her about my knees, about the doctor's orders, about my financial situation. She listened quietly. Then I asked, as casually as I could manage, Honey, would it be okay if I moved in with you for a while, just until I get back on my feet health-wise and figure out my next steps? The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Finally, she said, Mom, I don't know. That's a big change. I tried to keep my voice steady. The house has 2 bedrooms, I said. I wouldn't be in your way. I could help you actually with cooking and things. She said, let me think about it and call you back. 2 days passed. 2 days of me checking my phone, constantly hoping for a call or text. On the 3rd day, she finally called. Her voice was different, formal almost. Mom, I talked to Garrett about this. My heart sank at those words, Garrett. What did he have to do with this? She continued. I don't think it's a good idea for you to move in. Why not? I asked, though part of me already knew. She took a breath, and I could hear her choosing her words carefully. My life is different now. My whole career is built on my aesthetic. My home is my brand. I have photo shoots here constantly. Sponsors visit. Everything needs to be on brand. I felt something cold settling in my chest. Madison, I said slowly, are you saying I can't live in the house I bought you because of your aesthetic? She tried to soften it, saying it wasn't that simple, that I had my things, my style, that it didn't match her carefully curated image. That I would... She said it. She actually said it. You would ruin the aesthetic. Those 5 words, you would ruin the aesthetic. My daughter, the child I'd carried and birthed and raised and sacrificed everything for, was telling me I would ruin her aesthetic. Not that we'd figure it out together. Not that she'd make it work. That I, her mother, would ruin something as meaningless as an Instagram feed. I couldn't speak. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, unable to form words. She kept talking, suggesting I find a cheaper place in Portland, or maybe look into senior housing. Senior housing, I was 56 years old, not 80. But to her, I was already disposable, already ready to be filed away somewhere out of sight. Finally, I found my voice. Madison, I'm your mother. I gave up everything for you. I bought you that house with your father's life insurance money. Money I could have used for my own security. She said, and I'm grateful, Mom, I really am. But I can't let you move in. I'm sorry. You're not sorry, I said, my voice shaking. If you were sorry, you wouldn't tell me I ruin your aesthetic. You wouldn't choose Instagram over your own mother. She went quiet. I said I need to go and ended the call before she could respond. I sat in the darkness of my living room for hours. The pain in my knees was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I thought about all the times I'd worked double shifts so Madison could have new school supplies. The times I'd eaten ramen for dinner so she could have real meals. The times I'd worn the same coat for 5 winters so she could have a new one each year. The camping trips we took because I couldn't afford hotels, but I'd frame them as adventures so she wouldn't feel poor. I thought about Paul's life insurance check, that huge sum that represented his entire life's value, according to the insurance company. I'd signed it over without hesitation, thinking I was investing in my daughter's future. Instead, I'd apparently bought myself a lesson in how little I mattered. But then something shifted inside me. Beneath the hurt, beneath the tears, I felt something else rising. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but cold and clear and focused. I'd spent my whole life being soft, being giving, being selfless. And where had it gotten me? Told I ruined an aesthetic. Told I didn't fit in. Told I wasn't welcome in a house I'd bought. I stood up, ignoring the pain in my knees, and walked to my desk. I pulled out the file folder where I kept important documents. And there it was, the deed to Madison's house. I'd never gotten around to transferring it into her name. I'd meant to have even filled out the paperwork, but something had made me hesitate. Maybe some part of me had known I'd need this leverage someday. The house was still in my name. Legally, completely, unquestionably mine. Madison was living in my house, posting her perfect pictures in my house, building her brand in my house, and telling me I couldn't live there. A smile crossed my face, cold and determined. If I ruined her aesthetic, then maybe she didn't need the house I'd given her. The next morning, I woke up with absolute clarity. I'd spent the night researching, planning, making sure I understood my legal standing. I called a real estate attorney in Austin named Grace. I explained the situation clinically without emotion. The house is in your name, she confirmed. Yes, I said, and your daughter is living there without a formal rental agreement. Correct, I said. She's not paying rent. No, I said. It was a gift, but the deed was never transferred. Grace was quiet for a moment, then said, Mrs. Thompson, you have full legal rights to this property. You can sell it, rent it, or ask your daughter to vacate. Whatever you choose to do is within your rights. I asked what she thought I should do. She said, that's not a legal question. That's a personal one. But if you want to send a message, putting the house on the market would certainly accomplish that. A message. Yes, that's exactly what I needed to send. Not just to Madison, but to myself. A message that I mattered, that I deserved respect, that there were consequences for treating people, even your own mother, as disposable. I told Grace I wanted to list the house. She connected me with a realtor she knew in Austin, a woman named Karen. I called Karen that afternoon. I explained I owned a property in East Austin that I wanted to sell. I didn't mention it was my daughter's house, didn't mention the family drama, just that I was ready to sell and wanted to move quickly. Karen was enthusiastic. East Austin properties were hot, she said. The neighborhood had gentrified significantly. Houses that sold for $200,000 3 years ago were now going for $350,000, $380,000. My modest townhouse could sell for $380,000. I felt a strange satisfaction at that number. The house had appreciated $150,000 in just over 2 years. That was my equity, my investment grown because of a market I'd inadvertently timed right. Karen said she could have the listing up within 3 days. She'd come to do a walkthrough, take professional photos, and install the sign. The sign. That's what I was really waiting for. I have a specific request, I told Karen. When you put up the for sale sign, I want you to photograph it and send me the image immediately. She found this a bit odd, but agreed. I didn't elaborate. I didn't tell her I wanted to be the one to send that photo to my daughter. I wanted Madison to learn about this from me in the most direct way possible. The next 2 days felt surreal. I went about my normal routine, working my limited shifts at the hospital, tending my garden, attending book club. But underneath it all, I was counting down. Karen texted me updates. Walkthrough scheduled for Wednesday, photos Thursday, sign installation Friday morning. Each message was another step toward the moment I'd been planning. I didn't call Madison, didn't warn her. She hadn't warned me before telling me I ruined her aesthetic. She hadn't given me the courtesy of a gentle conversation before rejecting me. Why should I extend courtesies she'd never shown me? Friday morning arrived. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat with my phone in my hand. At 9:30, Karen texted, "Sign is up, photo attached." I opened the image and there it was, a large professional for sale sign standing in front of Madison's house. My house. The photo showed the whole front of the property, the sign prominent and unmistakable. I opened my text thread with Madison. Our last conversation had been that awful phone call about moving in. Before that, weeks of superficial check-ins. I attached the photo. Didn't write anything, no explanation, no context, just the image of that for sale sign. I hit send. Then I turned off my phone. I needed space from whatever reaction was coming. I needed to not immediately cave to her inevitable calls and messages. I got dressed, put on my walking shoes, and drove to the park near my house. I walked slowly because of my knees, but I walked for an hour, breathing fresh air, watching birds, feeling lighter than I had in months. When I finally turned my phone back on 2 hours later, it exploded with notifications. 32 missed calls from Madison, 25 text messages. The messages escalated from confusion to panic. The first one said, "Mom, what is this?" The second, "Why is there a for sale sign on my house?" Then, "Call me right now." Then, "This is insane. You can't do this." Then just "Mom" in all capitals over and over. I read every message. I looked at each missed call notification, and I felt nothing but calm resolve. Let her panic. Let her feel uncertain and afraid. Let her wonder what would happen next. I'd spent months feeling exactly those things because of how she'd treated me. Now it was her turn. I didn't respond, not that day. I let her sit with it just like I'd sat with being told I ruined her aesthetic. I made myself dinner, watched a movie, went to bed early. My phone continued buzzing periodically through the evening. I ignored it all. For the first time in a very long time, I put myself first. Saturday evening, I finally called Madison back. She answered on the first ring. "Mom," she shouted, "what the hell are you doing?" I kept my voice calm, almost pleasant. "I'm selling my house," I said. "Your house," she practically screamed. "That's my house. You gave it to me, no Madison," I said. "I let you live in it. The deed is still in my name. I never transferred ownership to you." There was shocked silence. Then sputtering. "You can't do this. I live here. My whole life is here," I corrected her. "Your whole life or your aesthetic." "That's not fair," she said, and I could hear tears in her voice. "Not fair," I repeated. "What's not fair is you telling your mother she ruins your aesthetic. What's not fair is you saying I can't live in a house I bought because I don't match your Instagram feed. What's not fair is you choosing Garrett's parents and your followers over your own mother." "I didn't mean it like that," she protested weakly. "Then how did you mean it?" "Madison," I asked, "explain to me how telling your mother she's not good enough for your brand is acceptable. Explain how that's supposed to feel." She started crying harder. "I was stressed," she said. "Garrett's parents, they expect a certain lifestyle, and I was trying to impress them, and I just—" "So you chose impressing Garrett's parents over having a relationship with me?" I asked. Silence. "Answer me, Madison." She sobbed. "I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. Everything got so mixed up with the Instagram stuff and Garrett and trying to keep up this image. I lost sight of what mattered. I felt a crack in my anger, but I couldn't let it soften me yet." "You lost sight of your mother needing help?" I asked. "Your mother who gave you everything, who used her dead husband's insurance money to buy you a house." She cried harder. "I know," she kept saying. "I know, I'm sorry, I know." "Do you want to keep the house?" I asked. "Yes," she said immediately. "Please, Mom, please don't sell it. My career is built around this house. All my content, my sponsors, everything. Without this house, I lose everything I've worked for. Then we need to talk, I said. Face to face. I'm flying to Austin this weekend. And Madison, you better be ready to actually listen. To put down your phone, turn off your ring lights, and have a real conversation. Can you do that? Yes, she whispered. Okay, I'll be there. We agreed I'd fly in Saturday morning. I bought my ticket that night using some of the money I'd been saving. One-way ticket because I didn't know how long this would take or how it would end. The flight to Austin felt like it took forever. I kept rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd stand my ground, what boundaries I needed to set. I'd spent so long being the soft-giving mother that I'd forgotten how to be firm. But this situation required firmness. It required me to value myself enough to demand respect. Madison picked me up at the airport. She looked terrible. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair unwashed and pulled back messily. She wasn't wearing makeup. In a way, she looked more like my daughter than she had in years. She hugged me tight as soon as she saw me, and I let her, but I didn't hug back with the same intensity. I couldn't let myself fold yet. In the car, she started apologizing immediately. Mom, I've been horrible to you. I don't even recognize myself. I don't know what happened. I just got so caught up in this world of likes and followers and impressing people that I forgot about real things, real relationships, real love. I stared out the window as she drove. The sign I said, "It's been up for 3 days. My followers keep asking about it. Some of them saw it and posted questions. It's been humiliating." Now you know how I felt, I said quietly, when you told me I ruin your aesthetic. When you said I don't fit in with your crowd. When you didn't invite me to your birthday party. She wiped tears from her face as she drove. I know, she said. I was awful. I was so awful. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve that house. I don't deserve anything. Her self-flagellation didn't move me. I'd heard apologies before, quick fixes designed to smooth things over. I needed more than words. We arrived at the house, that for sale sign still standing proudly in the front yard. Madison winced when she saw it. Inside, the house looked the same as before. Perfect, sterile, beautiful in an impersonal way. We sat at her dining table, expensive and minimal. No clutter, no life, just surface. Do you even remember how you got this house? I asked her. She nodded, crying. Dad's life insurance. Yes, I said. Your father died and I used every single penny of that insurance to give you this house. $230,000. I could have used it for my retirement. I could have paid off my own mortgage. I could have secured my future. But I gave it to you because I loved you. Because I wanted you to have opportunities. I know, Mom, she whispered. Do you? I asked, because the way you've treated me suggests you've forgotten. Suggests you think this house appeared out of nowhere, that you earned it all by yourself. She shook her head. I haven't forgotten. I got caught up. The followers, the sponsorships, the money, Garrett and his family and their lifestyle. I wanted to impress everyone. I wanted to be successful, and I lost sight of who actually mattered. Which is, I prompted. You, she said. Family. Real connections, not Instagram connections. People who love me for who I am not, for my aesthetic or my follower count. I looked at her carefully, trying to see if this was genuine or just panic talking. She met my eyes and I saw something there I hadn't seen in a long time. Genuine shame. Real understanding. If you want to keep this house, I said, things have to change. Anything, she said immediately. First, you apologize to me properly. Not just, I'm sorry, but you acknowledge specifically what you did and why it was wrong. She took a shaky breath. Mom, I'm sorry for telling you that you ruined my aesthetic. That was cruel and shallow and wrong. You don't ruin anything. You gave me everything. I'm sorry for not inviting you to my birthday. I'm sorry for making you feel like you don't fit in my life. I'm sorry for choosing image over substance, strangers over family, Garrett's approval over your love. I'm sorry for forgetting who I am and where I came from. The apology was good, specific, painful for her to say, which meant it was real. Second, I continued, you transfer half the house into joint ownership with me. We become legal co-owners. That way you can never shut me out again. She nodded. Done. I'll call a lawyer Monday. Third, you make room for me in your life. Really in your life, not hidden in a guest room. When I visit, I'm not an inconvenience. I'm your mother and I'm welcome in this house I bought. If your aesthetic can't accommodate your own mother, then your aesthetic is wrong. Not me. She was crying, ing again, but nodding. You're right, completely right. I'll change everything. The aesthetic doesn't matter. The followers don't matter. You matter. I felt my own eyes welling up finally. Good, I said. Because I'm tired, Madison. I'm tired of feeling like I don't matter to you. I'm tired of being treated like an embarrassment. I'm your mother. I wiped your tears and nursed you through illnesses and celebrated every achievement. I deserve better than being told I ruin your aesthetic. You deserve so much better, she agreed. And I'm going to spend as long as it takes making this right. I promise. Can you forgive me? I looked at her, really looked at her. She was broken in that moment, stripped of the polished influencer persona. She was just Madison again. My daughter. Still flawed, still learning, but genuine. I can try, I said. It'll take time. You really hurt me. I know, she said. I'll wait as long as you need. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, I'm taking the house off the market. But the deed stays in my name until I see real change. And if you ever make me feel unwanted again, the sign goes back up. Do you understand? She nodded vigorously. I understand. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for not giving up on me. I didn't do it for you, I said honestly. I did it for me. To prove to myself that I deserve respect, that I won't accept being treated poorly, not even by my own daughter. She reached across the table and took my hand. You taught me something important, she said. Sometimes love means setting boundaries. Sometimes it means consequences. I nodded. Yes, it does. The next few weeks brought real change. Madison called a lawyer and started the process of transferring half ownership to me. She also did something I hadn't expected. She broke up with Garrett. I didn't ask her to, but when I visited the following month, she told me they'd ended things. Why, I asked. Because he and his family brought out the worst in me, she said. I was so desperate to impress them, to live up to their standards, that I lost myself. I lost you. I can't be with someone who makes me forget my values. I was proud of her for that decision. Garrett had been part of the problem, his lifestyle and expectations, and pushing her further into superficiality. Without him, Madison seemed to breathe easier. She also made changes to her content. She posted a photo of the two of us together, me in my jeans and simple sweater, her with minimal makeup and a genuine smile. The caption read, "This is my mom. She's the strongest woman I know. She worked as a nurse for 30 years, raised me alone after my dad died, and bought me the house I live in with his life insurance money." I forgot to appreciate her for a while. I got caught up in aesthetics and image and lost sight of what really matters. Family isn't about matching your brand. It's about unconditional love. And my mom taught me that sometimes love means holding people accountable. I'm grateful she didn't give up on me. The post got more engagement than most of her carefully curated content ever had. Thousands of comments from people sharing their own stories about family, about priorities, about learning hard lessons. Madison showed me the comments, tears in her eyes. People connect with real stuff, she said, not just pretty pictures. Who knew? She also started visiting me in Portland more often. She'd fly up for weekends, helping me around the house, going to my doctor appointments with me. We'd cook together, watch movies, talk for hours the way we used to. She seemed lighter, somehow less burdened by the constant performance of her online life. I also noticed she started posting more authentic content, photos of burned toast with captions about cooking failures, videos of her messy bedroom with jokes about real life versus Instagram life. Her followers loved it. Her engagement actually increased. Turns out people wanted authenticity more than perfection. Madison was learning what I'd always known. Real connection matters more than curated image. As for my health, I had the knee surgery I'd been putting off. Madison flew to Portland and stayed with me for 2 weeks during recovery, helping me with physical therapy exercises, making meals, keeping me company. It was during those quiet weeks together that I finally felt like I had my daughter back. The real Madison, not the influencer version. One evening, as she helped me up the stairs to bed, she said, "Mom, I never thanked you properly. For the house, yes, but more than that. For loving me enough to call me out. For refusing to accept how I was treating you. A lot of parents would have just let it go. stayed silent, let me keep being awful. You didn't. You held up a mirror and made me see myself. That took courage. I squeezed her hand. You're my daughter. I'll always fight for you, even if sometimes that means fighting against you. She hugged me carefully, mindful of my recovery. I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby, I said. And I meant it with my whole heart. Looking back now, I don't regret putting that for sale sign up. Some people might think it was harsh, vindictive even, but it was necessary. It was the wake-up call Madison needed. More than that, it was the wake-up call I needed. I'd spent so long being the selfless mother that I'd forgotten I was also a person deserving of respect and dignity. The house is now officially in both our names. Madison is thriving with her more authentic approach to social media. I'm healing both physically and emotionally. We talk several times a week, real conversations about real things. She's planning to come to Portland for Christmas, and we're going to cook Paul's favorite recipes together, decorate the house the way we used to when she was little. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to be treated poorly. Sometimes it means setting boundaries so firm they shock everyone, including yourself. I'm still Madison's mother, and I always will be. But now she knows I'm also a woman who deserves respect. And that lesson, painful as it was for both of us, was worth every moment of heartache. Because at the end of the day, real love isn't about perfect aesthetics or matching color palettes. It's about showing up, being honest, holding each other accountable, and choosing each other even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Madison knows that now, and so do I. So, here's what I want to know from all of you watching this. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? Have you ever felt taken for granted by family? Drop a comment below and share your story. I'd love to hear how you handled it. And if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you to value yourself and demand respect, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because stories like these about real life and real struggles are what we're all about here. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you remember that you matter, that you deserve respect, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept less than you deserve. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember, family is precious, but so are you.